In today's video, in a quiet Hertfordshire town, a late night message would send off a chain of events that would end in tragedy. What began as a seemingly routine encounter soon unravelled into one of the region's most brutal and calculated killings. Only later would the full scale of the betrayal and the forces behind it come to light. This is Curios&Spiritual. We look at the case, the police investigation and trial. In mid-2019, Cameron Hill, aged 23 years old, was recruited and had become a courier for County Lines operation based around North Mims and Hatfield in Hertfordshire. He was actively distributing Class A product, including H and crack in the region. During this period, another County Lines gang, led by Salah al-Hindi and his associate Subra Ismail, was operating out of Penge, south east London. They employed runners such as Najab Hassan and Nikhil Moore. Tensions between the two lines escalated when Cameron Hill was alleged to have stolen a mobile phone belonging to a runner of al-Hindi's group. In reaction, al-Hindi orchestrated a revenge plan, prompting Hassan and Moore to travel from London to Hatfield to confront Hill. The arrangements were clandestinely coordinated, and phone records later revealed a taxi booking under al-Hindi's number to a rendezvous at St Peter's Close on the night of June the 9th. On the evening of Sunday the 9th of June 2019, al-Hindi, Ismail, Hassan and Moore arrived at the home of Nicholas Nick Pitts, 40 years old, on Stockbreach Road, Hatfield. Pitts was a local associate and he permitted them to change clothes there. Christy Bishop, 39 years old, a known user and a casual customer of Cameron Hill's line who lived in St Peter's Close, was also drawn into the plot. Within the flat they were ready for an ambush. Handlers like Bishop and Pitts prepared to lure Cameron Hill in, and Hassan and Moore, one or both armed with knives, positioned themselves in readiness. They were wearing latex gloves, masks and bandanas when they entered the flat. At around 1:20 AM on the 10th of June, Christy Bishop sent Cameron Hill a text message reading, "I want something else," followed by, "Come on," asking him to visit her flat to buy Class A. She falsely portrayed herself as a customer, awaiting his delivery. Hill arrived at the flat on St Peter's Close where Christy Bishop lived. Within moments of his arrival, a group of masked gloved men forced their way inside, with at least 3 knives in hand. Bishop and Pitts were there, and the attackers were Hassan and Moore, acting under al-Hindi's direction. Al-Hindi and Ismail were in Hatfield that night, alongside Hassan and Moore. Neighbours heard loud banging and voices at approximately 1:20 to 1:25 AM. One witness reported hearing a man cry out, "Somebody help me, I'm dying out here." The men attacked Hill immediately, stabbing him 11 times to his torso and leaving him to bleed. Bishop and Pitts remained at the scene until neighbours called police at 1:21 AM, reporting the altercation. Cameron Hill staggered from the flat. He was found collapsed in a hallway in the communal area of the block. Paramedics arrived and transported him to hospital, but he succumbed to blood loss and died later that morning. Shortly after the 999 call, officers from the Bedfordshire, Cambridgeshire and Hertfordshire Major Crime Unit secured the crime scene. The investigation revealed fingerprints in Bishop's flat belonging to Pitts, Hassan and al-Hindi, and associate Arnold Musumbunda. On the 11th of June 2019, police arrested Bishop and Pitts. Hassan and Moore were arrested later on the 13th of August 2019. 2 additional suspects, including al-Hindi and Ismail, were identified through CCTV and phone records. They later fled the country. Al-Hindi escaped to Kuwait and Ismail to Somalia and have not returned. Investigators also uncovered evidence that Hassan and Moore had changed clothes at Pitt's residence and disposed of them upon their return to London.
Are you involved in the murder of Cameron Hill?
No comment.
Do you know who was involved in the murder of Cameron Hill?
No comment.
I'm going to say Cameron from now on because we all know it's Cameron Hill. Were you present when he was stabbed?
No comment.
Did you assist in any way the people that stabbed Cameron?
No comment.
Do you know why he was stabbed?
No comment.
Do you know anything about this stabbing at all?
No comment.
Whether you were present or hearsay?
No comment.
Where were you when he arrived? Because I'm told people hid themselves so he couldn't see them when he arrived. Where were you hiding? Why were you hiding? Why did you not want him to see you? I'm assuming this wasn't some surprise party and you were all jumping out to surprise him. Why were you hiding?
So have you got any recollection of being in the vicinity of this address on the 9th of June?
No comment.
Or the early hours of Monday the 10th of June? Is there anywhere around here that, looking at this map, albeit it's just basic road name map, that you think, well, I might have been around there somewhere visiting somebody?
No comment.
Have you been there at all?
No comment.
All suspects were questioned and responded with no comment replies and were remanded into custody. The first trial began at Cambridge Crown Court, but was cut short in March 2020 due to the onset of lockdown. All charges included murder and manslaughter, alleging Bishop, Pitt, Hassan, Moore and Massambundo participated in a premeditated ambush. The trial was abandoned, necessitating a retrial once court operations resumed. At Cambridge Crown Court in May 2021, the retrial began. The court was presided by Judge David Farrell. The prosecution noticed that the 6 defendants standing trial were all arrested at separate points during the police investigation in 2019. Christy Bishop was first interviewed as a witness before police interviewed witness A, which led to Bishop's arrest on June the 11th, 2019. Nicholas Pitts was also arrested on June the 11th after being named in witness A's statement. He answered almost all the questions with no comment, but denied being involved, the court was told. Najib Hassan was arrested on July the 13th and gave no comment during the interviews with police. According to the prosecution, as Nick Moore was arrested and told that it was in relation to an incident in Hatfield, he said, "Is that where that thing happened?" He was interviewed twice and only gave prepared statements during his interview. The jury heard that an investigation into property concluded that Cameron most likely started bleeding in the living room of the flat before walking towards the kitchen and collapsing in the communal hallway. The investigation of the scene also found a print from the left ring finger of Pitts near the living room door. One of Hassan's prints was found in a similar location, according to the prosecution, addressing the jury. In a post-mortem carried out on June the 11th, the pathologist found that Cameron was in good health apart from the inflicted wounds. Pathologist Dr. Charlotte Randall found Cameron had 11 stab or puncture wounds to his body, with 4 to the front of the trunk, 6 to the back of the trunk, and 1 to his left arm. 3 stab wounds to the chest and abdomen were significant enough to be life-threatening on their own as they struck vital organs. Dr. Randall was able to determine the injuries were inflicted by a bladed knife. However, they cannot tell how many knives or weapons were involved. There were also blunt force injuries that were consistent with defensive reactions. The jury had been told that witness A had never met Cameron before, but knew of him. He knew him as Blue, a name he used while working. The prosecution told the court that witness A had explained to the police that they'd become terrified of what they knew was going to happen to Cameron. Witness A then went to Christy Bishop's bedroom and hid inside a bedroom cupboard, but before this was able to see out of the doorway. The prosecution told the jury as Blue approached, he asked who Christy was with. Christy lied to him, and the men were hiding in the flat kept very quiet. Some were wearing blue latex gloves, and some were wearing just one, as they had to share. It was at this point that witness A went to hide in the bedroom. The prosecution continued as Cameron went into the flat. He asked who Bishop was with. Witness A heard Christie lie and say she was just with witness A. Witness A then heard a commotion, thudding noise, and he was screaming. According to the prosecution, Cameron had apparently pleaded, "Can we just talk about this?" The jury has heard that according to the prosecution's timeline, within minutes of Cameron arriving at the flat, a neighbour had called 999. Cameron was seen on the same CCTV camera nearby at 1:16 a.m, which police believe is a 3-minute walk from Bishop's flat. According to the prosecution, Christie Bishop texted him around that time simply saying, "Come on," before Cameron called again. An upstairs neighbour called 999 at 1:21 a.m. after hearing an argument downstairs. The caller said he heard a man in the hallway call, "Somebody help me, I'm dying out here." He was told by the operator to stay in his flat, which he did until the shouting stopped. The jury heard then he discovered a male covered in blood in the hallway, alongside Bishop. The prosecution told the jury their men asked witness A or Christie to call up Cameron Hill and get him to come round to Christie's flat, because apparently he had done something wrong. That was what witness A gleaned from it. Witness A refused, but Christie agreed on the promise of receiving free Class A gear from these men. Telephone records show that Bishop had contacted Cameron early in the day and was a regular customer. According to the prosecution, the defendant texted victim saying, "I wanted something else," at 1:06 a.m, with Cameron calling at 1:07 a.m. Witness A remembers the call and that the impression was that Cameron Hill was suspicious that Christie Bishop was trying to set him up. The court heard the unnamed eyewitness, who we'll refer to as Witness A, had previously moved away from Hatfield, but was in the area that weekend and bought £60 worth of crack before meeting with Bishop. Prosecution told the jury that the two people then spent the evening trying to score more product, before Witness A returned to the flat and Bishop met up with another friend. CCTV footage from a nearby business backs up Witness A's timeline. The prosecution said after both were back at the flat, the witness heard loud banging at Bishop's window and door. Witness A implored Christie not to open the door, but she did. Witness A said the men forced past and into the flat. Witness A saw 5 men. We will submit there were more than 5, but Witness A said 5. They were all big men and they were all armed. Witness A recognised one and was able to name him as Nicholas Pitts, and Witness A said he was armed with a screwdriver. The court has heard that 2 further people, Salah al-Hindi and Subra Ismail, were accused by the prosecution of being involved in the murder, but fled the country the day after the attack and have not yet returned. On the 30th of April 2021, the jury returned verdicts. Najib Hassan, aged 24 years old, was found guilty of murder. Christie Bishop, 39 years old, Nicholas Pitts, 40 years old, and Nikhil Moore, 25 years old, were found guilty of manslaughter and cleared of murder. Arnold Musumbundo, 20 years old, and Jason Gilzine, 53 years old, were acquitted of all charges. Formal sentencing occurred in May 2021. Najib Hassan received a life sentence for the murder, with a minimum term of 23 years behind bars. Nicholas Pitts was sentenced to 12 years for manslaughter. Nikhil Moore was found guilty of manslaughter and received a 10-year imprisonment. Christie Bishop was found guilty of manslaughter and jailed for 6 years. Cameron Hill's murder was not just the end of a young man's life. It was a product of a system that routinely discards young men like him, grooming them into a world where violence is currency and trust is a weakness. The faces in court, Hassan, Moore, Bishop and Pitts, were not strangers to this world. They were part of a chain of exploitation, all trapped in a brutal economy where product flowed faster than justice and where life could be traded for loyalty. But Cameron's story forces us to confront something deeper. It's not enough to ask why he was killed. We must ask why he ended up there in the first place. Why a 23-year-old became entangled in a network that saw his life as disposable. Why young men from across London, Hertfordshire and beyond are being sent to fight invisible wars on quiet suburban streets. The county lines model thrives in silence. It depends on the public turning away, on communities being too afraid or too unaware to speak. Cameron's blood stains more than the floor of a flat in St Peter's Close. It stains a national conscience that has for too long accepted that some lies will fall through the cracks. Justice in the courtroom offers a measure of accountability, but justice without change is just a cycle. The real reckoning will come only when we stop letting these networks recruit our most vulnerable, when prevention replaces punishment, and when every young person like Cameron is offered a future worth surviving for, before it's too late. Because in the end, Cameron Hill didn't die because he was a criminal. He died because too many people looked away until the knives came out.